Hey guys, Austin here, and in today's video, I wanted to go over Ken Holland's draft history with the Oilers, and then I also want to contrast it with Peter Chiarelli's draft history and show just how much of a difference there is based on Chiarelli's drafting and Ken Holland's drafting and the impact players that are currently on the team with both GMs. Now, looking at Ken Holland's draft history, I have it on the screen here. Going back to the 2019 draft, his big pick was Philip Broberg at number 8. Tons of discourse around that pick. It was a stretch at the time. Broberg has not established himself at the NHL level, and he continues to be a healthy scratch most nights. And he's the only player that Ken Holland has drafted that has almost played a full season's worth of games at the NHL level, but he hasn't even played 82 games. He has 2 goals, 9 assists, 11 points, and he is on the outside looking in on most nights here. Then in the 2020 draft, we drafted Dylan Holloway, which I think was honestly a pretty good pick. He was very good with the University of Wisconsin. He put up a ton of production there, but he's never really been able to become an impact NHLer. He hasn't really been able to break into the top 6. He hasn't scored at a rate that a lot of people thought that he would by this point, and he is injury prone, which obviously injuries are not the general manager's fault, but I just wanted to bring that up and talk about. And then when we look at the 2021, 2022, and 2023 drafts, there are 0 NHL impact players from any of those drafts. And I think the 2021 draft might be the worst one in Ken Holland's entire tenure here. He traded down in the draft to draft Xavier Borgo instead of staying where he was originally slotted to draft goaltending prospect Jesper Wallstedt. In 2021, it was obvious that Koskinen and Mike Smith, they weren't going to be with the team long term. We were going to need something in the goaltending pipes, and we just decided to pass up on Wallstedt for some reason, even though he was on the board and highly touted. Jesper Wallstedt, most of you know, he is currently in Minnesota's system right now. He's in their AHL affiliate. I believe it's Iowa is where they play. And Wallstedt, he's going to be a terrific goaltender. He's putting up unbelievable numbers in the AHL this year. Not an NHL impact player yet, but that's someone that, with the Oilers goaltending situation right now, I think he has the skill to be able to come up and play at the NHL level, but we picked Borgo instead. And then the 3rd round pick, Luca Munzenberger, that was like way off the board. Munzenberger was ranked like 200th in most drafts, even more. Like that was a completely off the board pick. You could have taken Munzenberger in the 7th round with your final pick if you really wanted to. So that was just not a good pick, I don't think. And again, this is nothing against these kids. They are just kids. It's not their fault that Ken Holland and his scouting staff, saw something in these players. They're just not at the level that they should be. And then in the 2022 draft, the only impact player that we drafted really was Reed Schaefer, and he was only an impact player because he allowed us to acquire Matthias Ekholm by being included in the trade package for Ekholm from Nashville. And then, of course, in the 2023 draft, we only had 3 picks. Our number 1 pick in the draft, which was in the 2nd round, was Bo Aki. Terrific offensive defenseman, but he may be redundant depending where Evan Bouchard is in his career by the time Bo Aki is ready to graduate to the NHL level. So looking at all of Ken Holland's draft picks, there's a lot of just no games played at all on this board. And I want to contrast that with Peter Chiarelli. So let's take a look at Peter Chiarelli's picks and who is still on the team that Chiarelli drafted. I included Connor McDavid, kind of unfair. Obviously, Chiarelli was gifted him. Craig McTavish was GM when the Oilers won the lottery, but it was Peter Chiarelli who was made GM before the draft. And then, of course, we have Vincent Desharnais, 7th rounder. It did take a while for him to graduate and work his way up to the NHL level, but now that he's here, he's played well enough where I don't think he's going to be sent back to the AHL anytime soon. He is a fixture on the 3rd pair for Edmonton. Stuart Skinner, we all know Stuart Skinner's path to the NHL. Last year, he took over from Jack Campbell in the crease as the number 1 starter in Edmonton. Kind of saved the season. Kind of funny that a Peter Chiarelli draft pick in net ended up saving the Oilers season and helping us get to the playoffs after a slow start, and Jack Campbell being unable to perform anywhere near NHL caliber goaltending. Terrible contract that Ken Holland gave out to Jack Campbell. And then, of course, we have Ryan McLeod, who is a terrific 3rd line center. He's maybe not producing the points that many thought he would at this point in his career, but I think Ryan McLeod, his speed, his tenacity, his two-way game, very, very strong. He does drive play, and I really like his game. He's a great draft pick. I'm really happy that he's on the team. Next up is Evan Bouchard. Now, Evan Bouchard, we all know the discourse around him, but it's not often that you come across point per game defenseman. That is a Peter Chiarelli draft pick. Evan Bouchard, his trajectory up into the NHL level. He killed it in the AHL. He slowly worked his way up in the NHL, and now he is a fixture with Matthias Ekholm on, I would consider, the number one defense pair. He obviously still has some things to work out in his game on the defensive side of the puck, but he is only 24 and he has been a terrific player for Edmonton. Now, some honorable mentions, players that Peter Chiarelli drafted that are still making an impact elsewhere. Not quite Edmonton, but, let's take a look here. Kyler Yamamoto, obviously he played a few years in Edmonton. He started off hot. He petered out. We had to dump him to make salary cap last summer. And then we had Caleb Jones, who was included in the trade for Duncan Keith. Ethan Bear, I don't know. I believe the media and fans ran out of town. I think Ethan Bear is a very capable number 4 or 5 defenseman. I hope he comes back from his injury and signs with a team soon. I really like Ethan Bear. Then you have John Marino, and then you had Michael Kesselring. These are all players that Peter Chiarelli drafted, and they are good players. Michael Kesselring, he was included in the trade to acquire Nick Bjugstad last season. Now in Arizona, Michael Kesselring on... I think he plays second pair minutes in Arizona. He's looking really good. He has 7 assists this season. He's been a really good player. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know where John Marino is right now, but I do know he was making a pretty big impact after he was moved out of Edmonton. I know he didn't want to sign a contract here. So again, that's not, really, I would say Edmonton's fault, but it is a good player that was drafted by someone that was not named Ken Holland. So what do you guys think? I wanted to contrast Peter Chiarelli's draft picks with Ken Holland's draft picks because I think Ken Holland has failed the Oilers from an organizational standpoint. He has not stocked the prospect cupboards the way I think you need to as a general manager. That is part of your job, because if you leave the team, if you're fired, if you retire, you want to be able to set your team up for success long term. I know the Oilers are considered a cup contender, although this season is very questionable if they'll even make the playoffs. But when you have that status, a lot of people will make the argument, okay, well, it's okay if our prospect pool isn't deep as long as we are making runs for a Stanley Cup. When we look at a season like this year, where Jack Campbell is struggling and Stuart Skinner was struggling, it would have been really nice to maybe have a call-up option in Jesper Wallstedt from the 2021 draft. But again, I digress. What do you guys think about this? When I put it in front of you, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you think Ken Holland has failed as a GM when it comes to his drafting and his pro scouting department and his amateur scouting. As always, if you liked the video, make sure you hit like. If you really liked it, make sure you hit subscribe. And I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Take care.